and today I'm back with 3 DIY Anthropologie home decor dupes. The first one is this wreath behind me, which I made entirely from Dollar Tree products, and then I also made this pitcher here, which you can also use as a vase for flowers, and then lastly these candlestick holders, which are all from dollar store products as well. So each of these projects is actually much less than a quarter of what you would pay for any one of these at Anthropologie, so it's really budget friendly way to decorate, and I really focused on Valentine's Day decor this month because it's kind of my post-Christmas crutch at this point. I like it because I spend a lot of money over the holidays and this is a affordable way to decorate. And then also it's nice to swap out Christmas decor and replace it with the next holidays decor. So yeah, now I'm gonna go into the materials list for our first project, which is the wreath. You'll need from Dollar Tree a wire wreath frame, a beaded frame, some felt hearts, some florals, chipboard shapes. And then from Walmart, I also got these fern leaves, but you can of course get that at Dollar Tree as well. And lastly, just you can use up anything from your stash. I used some spray paint and then these metal pieces I already had.
To start, I began attaching the fern leaves to the heart-shaped wire wreath using hot glue. And I really like this Walmart greenery because there's wire going through the center, so it made it really easy to kind of bend the leaves around the frame and just make it look a little bit more organic. I also thought that these leaves mimic the background of the anthro wreath really well with that kind of jagged looking edge. So I was really happy about that. Next, I took the other heart-shaped wreath and deconstructed it. I noticed that the anthro wreath had just a little bit of metal peeking out in the front. So this is going to be used to create that effect. And I took off the beads and I'm just going to probably add them to my hoarder stash of craft supplies after this. Then I went ahead and painted it with some leftover gold paint. And while I was doing that, I just went ahead and painted the greenery vine with some brown and gold just to make it not look as much like one of those fake plants you'd find in a public bathroom. Then I just wrapped that vine around the gold heart and attached it to the top of the bigger wreath. This made it look much more organic and created that kind of wild look that the anthro wreath had. Next, I took all the felt flowers and I spray painted them with different shades of pink and metallic spray paint. And I just kind of did little taps of spray paint and layered the colors a little bit just so that none of them were the same, so that they would not look so bright and perfect. I wanted them to look more neutral and have that almost aged, rusted look that the anthro wreath did. So here you can see the before and after as the roses became more muted and less Dollar Tree, if you will. Then moving on, I got to the really fun part where I got to think about the placement of each flower, and I got to overthink the placement of each flower and replace them, and you know how it goes. I'm just an overthinking girly over here, but actually it was fun because the more I added, the better it looked. And then I moved on to adding the smaller pieces, like these felt pieces here. I kind of worked in order of biggest to smallest so that I could fill in the gaps with the smaller elements, including these little red flowers I'm placing here. And then I went ahead and tucked in those little wood chip pieces. I really think the key to this project is just adding different textures. It just elevates it so much. And of course, most of these materials are from the Dollar Tree, so I'm not working with super expensive stuff, but just adding those different textures like felt and fabric and wood, and then these little metal pieces I'm adding here, all of it just makes it look like a higher quality wreath than it actually is. I spent less than $30 on all these materials, so $150 too. Couldn't be me, Anthro, couldn't be me. Lastly, I added some red string from my stash, also from Dollar Tree, to hang it, and that was it. A Valentine's Day wreath that rivals Anthropologie, if you ask me.
Next up, I'm going to show you this checkerboard pitcher. I actually thrifted the pitcher originally, so this is kind of a thrift flip. The only other materials I got were white and clear spray paint, as well as painter's tape and some glass paint from Walmart, and then these stencils from Dollar Tree.
First, I gave this guy a good scrub to wipe off that previous life and prep the surface for some of that white spray paint. Then I put, I think, about 3, maybe 4 coats of spray paint all over. I just did really thin layers to make sure it was smooth. Again, I definitely recommend a paint and primer in one because time and you don't want it to peel up. Next, I decided to actually measure before marking this off for tape. The diameter of the top was 14 inches, so to make it easy on myself, I just made 1-inch marks around the top. Then I matched the bottom with 14 sections, although its diameter was only 12 inches, so I had to do some actual thinking, but eventually I got there. And then I began lining up those marks I made on the top and bottom with tape because the width of the vertical lines aren't going to be even, I just kind of ripped the tape where I needed to and added a straight edge that curved a bit in the rounded part of the picture. This part was kind of tedious, but it only took me the length of 2 All Too Well 10-minute version Taylor's version, so not too bad. After that, I started adding the horizontal stripe, which was a lot simpler because no measuring was involved, so I think this took me about 1 ATWT MVTV. One thing I'd recommend is to put each piece of tape against some fabric before attaching it so that's less sticky and you don't risk peeling up the white paint underneath later because that would be a bummer. Then I just mixed some of the glass paint into a lavender shade and painted inside all of those squares I taped off. After that, I waited for the paint to dry and ever so carefully peeled the tape up and set it aside to reveal the first layer of squares for this pattern. Then I repeated those same steps for the opposite squares of the checkerboard pattern. The second layer of tape was even faster because I just followed the lines I already made the first time around, so that was kind of a nice treat. And once again, a great chance to sit on the couch and have a sad girl fall moment in February. Once again, I just made sure the tape was really secured and began painting inside each of those squares. I had to do about 3 layers of paint on each because it initially goes on kind of thin, but this paint dries really fast, so it was a quick process. Once that was dry, I peeled off the tape to reveal the checkerboard. In the process, I accidentally nixed some of the paint up, so I just went and touched it up. Finally, I took the Dollar Tree stencils and taped them on random squares and painted in little pinkish red hearts. This part was super quick and easy. I kind of like the more sporadic look of having the hearts all randomly placed, but you can also add it in more of a pattern like the Anthropologie picture. Lastly, I added some clear coat over the top, and that was it for this thrift flip picture. It's a nice nod to Valentine's Day while being trendy and functional, so definitely a statement decor piece.
And then the last Anthropologie dupe are these really cute candlestick holders. For this from Dollar Tree, I used plain glass candlestick holders, these cool twisty candlesticks, and some acrylic paint. And I would not recommend this clay from Dollar General because there is a warning on it saying it's flammable, yikes, but another air dry clay would work great. I also used some gel medium over top that I already had in my craft supplies, and that's it for materials.
I'm going to show you how I made the tall candle holder, but the same steps apply to the short one too. First, I covered the stem. To do this, I rolled out some clay and began wrapping it around the stem. Then I cut off any excess clay and just saved it for later in the project. I made sure the clay was really tight on there. For a little trick I like to do to make it really smooth, I just cut a slit in the clay I attached and gently remove it from the stem. Then I flip it inside out and reattach it, and this helps me get rid of any fingerprints and bumpiness. Then I used this little tool I got from Dollar Tree before, and I kind of patted down the seam so it would blend more, seamlessly. Then I just did the same general process, wrapping some rolled out clay over the base of the candlestick holder. And once again, I used that Dollar Tree tool, and this time the end of a paintbrush also, to smooth the clay and bring the 2 pieces of clay together so the seam wouldn't be noticeable. Next, I moved on to the main event, the clay flower. To make each petal, I took a piece of clay and rolled it into a 1/2 inch diameter ball. Then I pinched one end to make it look like a raindrop and rolled it out. I pulled the top a bit to make it more square to match the Anthropologie petals better, and then just pinched it together like this. Then I just repeated that process until I had enough petals, and I made about 14 to 15 petals per candle holder. To attach the petals, I first laid them out on my work surface, overlapping them slightly, and I went ahead and added a bit of clay to the top of the candle holder so these petals had something to stick to as I wrapped them around the top. Then I started attaching the outer petals. I made these petals slightly bigger so that they would extend further down and cover some of that remaining glass that was shown. I used that tool again to press the flower petals into the clay at the base and to kind of re-pinch the center of each of the petals. This step makes all the difference in making the petals look more realistic and expensive, so I highly recommend it. And then I wanted to show you I did the same for the small one. I just flipped over the candle holder and did the same steps to make a set. Then after I let them dry for at least 48 hours, it was time to paint them. I used acrylic paints I had in my stash, but you can buy similar paint at Dollar Tree. And when I mixed the colors, I wanted them to be really muted and not bright. So how you can achieve this is by adding a little bit of the opposite color on the color wheel to the paint. So I added yellow to the purple and added green to this pink color to make it a little bit of a dustier rose to match my other decor. Then I free painted a little burgundy scallop trim to the tall one to match the burgundy candlestick from Dollar Tree, and I added a little pink strip on the shorter one to tie the set together and make it a little more fun. And then I painted on this gloss gel medium I've had forever to protect the finish and to prevent the clay from catching on fire. This clay did have a warning on it to keep it away from flame, so adding acrylic over top is key. Regardless, I wouldn't leave candles lit and unattended in these candle holders just to be safe. Just make sure you read the labels on your materials before you start working. So here are the two together and freshly painted. I also painted the glass on the inside for an extra pop of color. And that's it. I ended up with these funky candlestick holders that look straight out of Anthropologie, but are made straight from dollar store products.
So that concludes my series on DIY Valentine's Day decor. I hope that you found some inspiration from it if you're an Anthropologie lover like me, or if you just like modern home holiday decor. I would really appreciate a like and subscribe if you got some type of inspiration from these videos. And if you're interested in more DIYs and dupes, I have a lot more plans this coming month and in the future. So please consider subscribing, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!